Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 15th of February 2025. The rebound ride. Sri Lanka must execute a workable medium to long-term economic plan within the next 5 to 10 years, asserts economic expert. Further notes that the IMF expects Sri Lanka to reach a 14% tax to GDP ratio in 2025. Constructive criticism. United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women commends Sri Lanka's action plan on women, peace and security. Concerns raised, however, on certain provisions of the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act. The Smart Drive. Smart parking system to be implemented in Colombo. A charge of 70 rupees to be levied per hour after the first 10 minutes of parking. Restored and reconnected. All generators of the Lakvijay power plant in Norochole restored and reconnected to the national grid.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawam Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
කන්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasafe වැස්සත් මට්ටුයි ගෙදරත් තිස්නේ.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lanka media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now in your top story tonight, island-wide cleanup campaigns were carried out today under the government's Clean Sri Lanka initiative. Among the many cleanup campaigns launched, the spotlight today was claimed by the cleanup campaign of the Budangala landfill, which has been ominously dubbed the graveyard of elephants by some.
Under the government's Clean Sri Lanka initiative, a clean-up campaign was organised in Budangala, Ampara, with the participation of security forces, personnel and officials of both state and private sectors. The clean-up campaign in Budangala was centred around the Budangala landfill, which spans across 15 acres. The landfill has been at the epicentre of environmental concerns, with residents of the area criticising the Ampara Municipal Council over its inability to maintain the premises properly. The lack of maintenance has allowed wild elephants to frequent the landfill and scavenge the garbage collected, which at times have caused the death of several elephants. Considering these concerns, the Ampara District Secretariat organised this clean-up effort under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative. To prevent further elephant deaths, authorities took steps to set up a biofence around the garbage dump by planting palm and lime trees. Furthermore, steps were taken to close off the mound of garbage collected at the site. The inaugural iteration of Clean Sri Lanka in the Badula district was held today at the Badula Central Bus Stand. Officials attached to state and non-state entities joined in on the clean-up efforts, including officials representing the Badula Municipal Council, the SLTB Bus Depot, the Badula Police, the District Secretariat and the Uber Provincial Council. As part of the clean-up effort, the Badula bus stand was cleaned up, along with certain parts of the bus stand being repaired and repainted.
The government decided to clean up 50 major bus stands like these across the island. We have identified 1,000 schools within which the Clean Sri Lanka initiative will be launched.
A clean-up and public awareness campaign was held today in Rajagiriya, led by the efforts of the Socialist Youth Union and several officials of the private and state sectors. Meanwhile, addressing a key public health and sanitation concern, several canals located in Narahimpita and Kirulapana were cleaned up today. The free flow of water along the canals were restricted with garbage clogging up the stream, causing foul odours. The clean-up of the canals were considered a necessity, considering its impact on residents and travellers passing by.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙත් වන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Don't waste time. Start your degree with pending A-level results this February with our partner universities. Call ACBT on 0117 699 499.
Now, in other local news, a public health inspector was arrested by the officials of the Bribery Commission for soliciting a bribe of 200,000 rupees to renew a hotel's trade license. The public health inspector was arrested in Galevilla today and has been remanded until the 17th of February after being produced before the Dambulla Magistrates Court. Now, the Municipal Commissioner of the Colombo Municipal Council, Derana, revealed plans to introduce a smart parking system as part of the CMC's initiative to digitalize its services. Shedding light on the new parking charge structure, the Commissioner revealed that the first 10 minutes that follow after a car is parked will be free of charge, while a charge of 70 rupees will be levied per hour after the first 10 minutes expire.
කොළඹ මහනගර සභාවත් මේ තියෙන සේවාවන් ඩිජිටල් කරණය කිරීමට
The Colombo Municipal Council is planning to digitalize its services. As part of this initiative, we will be introducing a smart parking system. This move intends to resolve issues pertaining to vehicle traffic and vehicle parking. We expect to carry out the payments through an online payment system. There is no law that requires a fee to be paid as soon as a vehicle is stopped. The first 10 minutes after a vehicle is parked will be free. A chit can be issued to record the time a vehicle was stopped for parking. If the vehicle is stationary for more than 10 minutes, a fee of 70 rupees will be charged per hour. However, no one will be charged exceeding this amount. Additionally, no fees will be obtained from the public on Poya days or other special holidays.
ඒ වගේම මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ පොය දිනවල සහ විශේෂ නිවාඩු දිනවලදී අපි අය කිරීම සිද්ධ කරන්නේ.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසිගින්නක් නැහැ.
කිසිගින්නක් නැහැ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Now, all generators at the Lakvijay power plant in Norochole which were out of commission following the recent island-wide power outage, have now been restored and reconnected to the national grid. Accordingly, a spokesperson for the power plant stated that 2 generators have now been connected to the national grid and said that 1 generator can be connected if necessary. The island-wide power outage that occurred on Sunday, the 9th of February, left the 3 generators disconnected, creating a deficit of 900 megawatts in the national grid. Afterwards, the Ceylon Electricity Board announced 1.5-hour scheduled power cuts on the 10th and 11th, 1-hour power cut scheduled on the 13th of February. However, the 3rd generator of the Norochole power plant was reconnected yesterday, and the Ministry of Energy announced scheduled power cuts will be discontinued. Now, in your Budget 2025 related updates, Professor Priyanga Dunasinghe calls for a workable medium to long-term economic plan which should be executed within the next 5 to 10 years. Highlighting that Budget 2025 is being tabled in Parliament within the parameters of the IMF framework, Professor Dunasinghe added that the IMF expects Sri Lanka to reach a 14% tax to GDP ratio this year.
We expect number of changes, in particular with respect to public servants' salary. There is a reasonable case for government to increase salary in a sizable manner so as to make sure that the public servants can at least reach their living standards enjoyed in 2016. Similarly, it is expected that the government will introduce at least some changes into pay tax and income taxes, while the VAT right now being applied to essential will at least partially be removed. But the government presents this budget in a context where Sri Lanka is under IMF agreement. So there are certain what we call the rail guards within which the government must present the budget in meeting certain criteria set by the IMF. In particular, the tax to GDP ratio must reach the 14% of GDP by 2025. For that, additional 1.5% of GDP related to taxes should should be collected this year. And in addition, there are some certain restrictions that government has to face when presenting the budget in line with the public finance management bill. Under that, primary government expenditure must be limited to 13%. So while there are many expectations under the new budget, however, available resources are limited. So government has to manage this in a way that the government can proceed or basically promote economic growth and development. Finally, most important thing is to present a workable medium to long-term economic plan within which budget should be presented. It should not be just a mere expenditure income statement. Rather, it must contain an economic plan, and that plan need to be basically executed during the next 5 to 10 years time.
Now, ahead of the government's inaugural budget presentation on the 17th of February, Deputy Minister of Housing T.B. Sarath announced that the government will create a historic budget this year aimed at addressing the needs of Sri Lanka's impoverished communities. Meanwhile, Samagi Jana Balavega's parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva warns that the incumbent government might be unable to develop the nation if they follow their predictions for the country's economic growth. With that, let's take a look at the opinions expressed by politicians ahead of the budget 2025.
The government today is in an extremely uncomfortable situation since they are unable to keep their election promises. They have been launching insurgencies and riots since 1971. They have no idea how to run a country after claiming power. This government cannot be brought down by these simple criticisms. Not just these 5 years, even the next 5 years will see the NPP government in power. This government will draft the first budget in Sri Lanka's history that caters to the needs of the poor. Prices of consumer goods have risen rapidly. For now, let's leave aside the government's efforts to bring down those prices. We hope that the president's budget speech will at least outline plans to restore the state of the economy back to where it was when Ranil Wickremesinghe left the office of the president. By this time last year, onions were priced at 800 rupees. Now it is 150 rupees. Kiri Samba was priced at 350 rupees back then. Now it is priced at 250 rupees. Chicken was priced at 1,600 rupees. Now it has been brought down to 850 rupees. Eggs were priced between 70 and 80 rupees. Now it is priced at 25 rupees. The electricity tariff was brought down by 20%. Is this not enough? This is what we have accomplished in 4 months' time. Salaries of state sector employees are not enough for them to meet their monthly needs. They can only survive for 2 weeks on their current salary. They will have to take on credit to survive the rest of the month. They cannot have other modes of income. Therefore, state sector employees expect a salary hike of at least 25,000 rupees through this budget. We will set an appropriate salary for state sector workers gradually. This budget will be the first step in that direction. We will start off from the budget and proceed to award them subsidies, allowance and relief as promised. We are bound to protect their rights as a government. The government has the opportunity to deliver on the promises they made by presenting them as budget proposals. The government has identified a few key aims to be prioritized through this budget. One is the eradication of rural poverty. Clean Sri Lanka is another aim we hope to prioritize. We also expect to prioritize the digitalization efforts. The budget to be presented will make provisions under those expenditure heads. Let's see their prediction for economic growth through the budget 2025. If we are to follow their predictions, in the next 50 years, we will only advance a few steps forward from where we are right now. This government will not be able to rapidly develop this nation or create a sustainable future for our children. Let's see what they present on Monday morning. We must not be negative. Their progress so far has been poor. However, we hope for a good budget which will be in the interest of the people.
Welcome back. You're joining Ada Derana, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. Now, the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women commended Sri Lanka's National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. After considering Sri Lanka's 9th periodic report, the committee also raised concerns on the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act. When questioned on the government's response to combating domestic violence, the Sri Lankan delegation revealed that the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act had been amended and that the amended act is expected to come into force this year.
The United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women concluded its consideration of Sri Lanka's 9th periodic report yesterday, with committee experts praising the country's National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. This marks Sri Lanka's first engagement with an international human rights treaty body since the presidential and parliamentary elections of 2024. Following its review, the committee raised questions about the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, which permitted child marriage and domestic violence. The committee expert and country rapporteur for Sri Lanka, Yamila Gonzalez Ferrer, said that the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act was amended in 2022, but there were still concerns regarding elements of the law. These concerns were listed as plans to amend the law and to impose a ban on child marriage. Another committee expert said at least 1 in 5 women in Sri Lanka had experienced violence from an intimate partner and that many did not report it. The expert raised concerns on the timeline for adopting proposed amendments to the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, while also focusing on measures taken to protect female victims of violence. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Minister of Women and Child Affairs, as well as the head of the delegation, Saroja Savitri Polwaj, asserted that the government is committed towards upholding the rights of women and girls and advancing gender equality. Minister Polwaj added that Sri Lanka's first National Action Plan for Women, Peace and Security for 2023 to 2027 had been launched with the government's commitment to deliver on the full promise of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. The National Action Plan is aimed at addressing displacement and women's protection, security and participation in peace building. With regard to the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, the delegation noted that the government had conducted consultations regarding its amendment, further emphasizing that the government is attempting to strike a balance between women's and children's rights and cultural rights. Minister Paul Raj also revealed plans of the Women's Parliamentary Caucus towards setting a minimum age for marriage and establishing a multi-sectoral committee to address this issue. Considering concerns raised on domestic violence, the delegation asserted that the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act had been amended and that the amended act is expected to come into force this year. In her closing remarks, Minister Saroja Savitri Polwaj claimed that the Sri Lankan government had undertaken significant efforts to strengthen women's empowerment, adding that it is fully committed to addressing issues faced by women. The delegation also expressed its willingness to continue constructive engagements with the committee. The Sri Lankan delegation comprised representatives from the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, Attorney General's Department, Sri Lanka Police, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism, and the Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka to the United Nations Office at Geneva. The committee is slated to issue the concluding observations on the report of Sri Lanka at the end of its 90th session, scheduled to take place on the 21st of February.
Now in other news, the Sri Lankan National Hydrographic Office and the United Kingdom's National Hydrographic Office inked a bilateral agreement aimed at fostering UK-Sri Lanka cooperation in hydrography. This collaboration is a major step forward for Sri Lanka as it positions itself as an active and progressive partner in international chart production, an aspiration that has been long necessity for the island nation. The inked bilateral agreement also reflects the enduring support extended by the United Kingdom to Sri Lanka in the field of hydrography.
The Sri Lanka National Hydrographic Office and the United Kingdom Hydrographic Office signed a landmark bilateral arrangement yesterday as part of Sri Lanka's journey towards enhancing its hydrographic capabilities. The agreement was formalized at a ceremony held at the Ministry of Defence. The agreement is aimed at fostering cooperation in hydrography, including knowledge exchange, capacity building, technical collaboration and revenue generation through the sale of Sri Lanka's hydrographic products to the international market. The arrangement was signed by Rear Admiral Angus S.N. High of the UKHO and Rear Admiral Kosala Barnakulasuriya of the SLNHO on behalf of their respective governments. The signing ceremony was graced by the Defence Secretary, retired Air Vice Marshal Sampattu Yakonta, and chairman of the National Hydrographic Council, retired Rear Admiral Sisira Jayakodi, alongside distinguished officials from the UK government, the Ministry of Defence, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the SLNHO. During his visit to Sri Lanka, Rear Admiral S.N. Hai met with Defence Secretary retired Air Vice Marshal Thuyakonta and Navy Commander Vice Admiral Kanchana Banagoda to discuss opportunities for strengthening strategic hydrographic cooperation and bilateral engagement between the two nations. At present, approximately 75% of the world's international charts and electronic navigational charts are marketed through the UKHO. Due to SLNHO's shortage of infrastructure, facilities and international reputation to independently market its hydrographic products globally, the UKHO was identified as the ideal partner to initiate this arrangement. Under the new framework, the SLNHO anticipates significant revenue generation through the sale of ENCs and other hydrographic products via the UKHO's extensive global network, a marked improvement compared to the historical submission of raw data to the UKHO. Additionally, the agreement paves the way for Sri Lanka to assume the role of primary charting authority in the future, a position currently held by the UKHO.
In your weather-related updates, the Department of Meteorology claims that the persisting sweltering temperature will persist within this month. Taking into account the forecast increase of temperature over several parts of the island tomorrow, the Met Department requested the general public to remain vigilant in order to avoid any adverse effects caused as a result of extreme heat conditions.
Parts of the country continue to experience soaring temperatures and extreme heat over the past few days, waging a heavy toll on the general public. The maximum temperature of 36.7 Celsius was recorded from the Ratnapura district during the past 24 hours. In addition, the heat index remained on the rise in several other main cities. Accordingly, Anuradhapura and Jaffna districts recorded a temperature of 33 degrees Celsius, while the temperature of Colombo, Galle and Kandy districts were recorded at 32 degrees Celsius. This extreme weather condition massively inconvenienced the general public, posing severe challenges to their daily routine. According to reports, the heat index or the temperature felt on the human body are experienced every year from January to April. The Department of Meteorology forecasts that the persisting extreme weather patterns will continue during the next few days.
දැනට තියෙන තත්ත්වයන් එක්ක බලද්දී ඉදිරි දින 10 එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ මාසේ ඉතිරි දවස් ටික බොහෝ ප්‍රදේශවල වියලි කාලගුණ තත්ත්වය බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න තමයි සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ.
Meanwhile, health officials advised the general public to take necessary precautions to prevent any adverse effects of the prevailing extreme heat conditions.
අපි කරන්න ඕනේ වැඩිපුර වතුර පානය කරන එක.
Considering these sweltering weather conditions, it is advisable to drink more water. Children should consume at least 2 bottles of water per day. Also refrain from consuming any artificial beverages or soft drinks. Instead, we advise the public to consume more natural drinks such as lime juice or oranges. Jeevani and soup are also advisable for consumption during dry weather conditions. By adhering to such a healthy lifestyle, the public can avoid dehydration and migraines. However, the lack of consumption of water will lead to severe headaches, vomiting and even cause physical pain. It would be advisable to engage in indoor activities in order to avoid passing out or heat strokes.
With that, here's a look at some local news across the island in brief.
NPP parliamentarian Mohammed Faisal's relative, who was arrested yesterday over a fatal accident, has been remanded until the 17th of February after being produced before the Maravilla Magistrates Court. The accident occurred yesterday in Haldaduwara, Koswatta, when a 65-year-old motorcyclist was killed after the MP's vehicle, which was being driven at the time by his relative, veered off the road and collided with the motorcycle. The Koswatta police later arrested the NPP MP's relative after preliminary inquiries into the incident. Meanwhile, a private bus travelling from Lunugambera to Colombo overturned near the Panduru flyover at around 4:30 am this morning. 4 injured persons were promptly admitted to the Panduru base hospital. The police suspect that the accident may have been caused by a mechanical issue of the bus. In other local news, the fire that broke out yesterday in the Alarock mountain range has now been brought under control. The fire first broke out yesterday at around 4 pm and torched down 5 acres of land.
Now, an orientation program for the second batch of the Moga Media Academy, which was established with the aim of producing talented professionals within Sri Lanka's animation industry, was held at the Derana auditorium today. Diploma programs in game development, animation, VFX and concept art will be offered to the second batch with an objective of bridging the gap between academia and the demands of the media industry.
The orientation program of the second batch of Mogo Media Academy was held at the Derana Auditorium this morning. Mogo Media Academy Institute was established with the aim of bridging the demand for skilled professionals capable of maneuvering the complexities of the digital landscape. The second batch of the Mogo Media Academy enrolled in view of obtaining diplomas in game development, animation, VFX and concept art.
We identified the need to train professionals within this industry in order to ensure the industry's existence within Sri Lanka. We established the Mogo Media Academy to fulfill this objective. We developed a syllabus after consulting experts within the industry and also obtained an accreditation from India's Media and Entertainment Skills Council. Our Mogo studio is the only one of its kind in Sri Lanka. This is a massive industry. In India, this industry is also funded by the government. However, in Sri Lanka, this industry has not been given the necessary attention. We expect to uplift Sri Lanka's animation industry. We call on you to reap maximum benefits of this.
And now it is your turn to create, to innovate and to push the boundaries. So welcome to Mogo Media Academy, where for sure your imagination will take flight, where your vision will come to life, and where together we will create something truly wonderful. And congratulations to all the students once again.
More information pertaining to enrollment to the Mogo Media Academy can be obtained through its official website at www.mogoacademy.lk as well as by contacting 011 728.
Welcome back. You're joining Ada Derana, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. Now in your business-related updates, the central bank in its monetary policy report for February 2025 noted that the island nation's headline inflation is expected to peak at around 2 percentage points above the central bank's target in the second quarter of 2026. The central bank in the report said headline inflation may edge above the target between late 2025 and mid-2026, adding that projections indicate this deviation will be short-lived. CBSL attributes the increase to an unfavorable base effect, a faster increase in global food inflation and demand pressures. The island nation's inflation stood at -4% in January, having tumbled from a peak of 70% in September 2022, mainly due to a reduction of a fifth in power tariffs. CBSL noted that this is expected to accelerate and approach the central bank's target of 5% in the third quarter of 2025 and rise further afterwards. Meanwhile, economic growth in the final quarter of the fiscal year 2024 is expected to be robust, driven by healthy industry activity, with annual growth projected at about 5%. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.